Good day dear students. In this video we shall see about the 2D Gauss quadrature integration and certain terms, that is force terms, that define the internal forces, external forces, forces during equilibrium, body forces, traction forces, point loads, and how they are represented in the terms of finite FEM will be covered in this video. We are aware that we cannot restrict the finite element analysis only to one-dimensional analysis. There are many situations in which finite element analysis yields 2 or 3-dimensional integration, or there will be 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional problems. Okay, in such cases numerical integration using Gaussian quadrature can be modified to 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. So we shall see an example wherein a 2D integral is considered. So let us consider a problem of numerically evaluating a 2D integral, that is of the form f of z n del z del n, and integrating z from -1 to +1 and n from -1 to +1. So the Gaussian quadrature for 2-dimensional integral is given by I is equal to integrating from -1 to +1, again -1 to +1, f of z n del z del n. So there n we will get two variables, z and n. Okay, so now let us see how to get the two parameters for or this integral function. So here you can see that Gaussian quadrature for 2-dimensional integral f of z n del z del n, integrating from -1 to +1 for z and -1 to +1 for n, we will get a summation of I equals 1 to n and j is equal to 1 to n. So I and j are the two variables in the two dimensions, and we will get two weight, that is w1 and wj, function of z1 and nj, zi and nj. So here we can write this as I is equal to w1 into w1 f of z1 n1 plus w2 f of z1 n2 plus w3 into f of z1 n3, plus it goes on until it reaches the value of wn. Similarly, plus w2 into w1 f of z2 n2 plus w2 into f of z2 n2 plus w3 into f of z2 n3. So it goes on until the value of n reaches n. Similarly, w3 plus w3 into w1 f of z3 n1 plus w2 into f of z3 n2 plus w3 into f of z3 n3, it goes on until the value of n becomes n3 becomes n. So here the Gaussian quadrature formula for quadrilateral element, if we are considering, then we can consider four variables, 1 2 3 and 4. So to find the Gauss points for zi, ni and the weights wi, let us consider a rectangular element with its natural coordinates as shown in the next slide. So here you can observe the variables will be -1 by root 3, -1 by root 3 for the node 1. For node 2 it will be 1 by root 3 and -1 by root 3. For node 3 it will be 1 by root 3 and plus 1 by root 3. For node 4 it will be minus 1 by root 3 and 1 by root 3. You can observe that the origin is exactly at the center of the rectangle, and how the values of zeta and n varies. Zeta varies along x-axis and n varies along the y-axis. So the equation can be further written as I is equal to integrating from minus 1 to plus 1, minus 1 to plus 1 f of zeta n del zeta del n is equal to w1 f of zeta n n1 plus w2 f of zeta 2 n2 plus w3 f of zeta 3 n3 plus w4 f of zeta 4 n4, where w1, w2, w3, w4 are nothing but the weights, which will be equal to 1, and we can calculate the values for zeta 1 and n1, zeta 2 and n2, zeta 3 and n3, and zeta 4 and n4. It is equal to the values shown in the figure, that is at node 1 it becomes minus 1 by root 3 and minus 1 by root 3. Similarly at node 2 1 by root 3 and minus 1 by root 3. At node 3 it will become 1 by root 3 and plus 1 by root 3, both are positive values. At node 4 it is minus 1 by root 3 and plus 1 by root 3, which is given in the equation 3.5.1. So this is the Gauss quadrature for 2D integration or 2D problems. So next, force terms. So the forces acting on a body can be classified as internal forces. So the internal forces are the reactive forces. So these reactive forces are set up due to the external loads or external forces that is acting on the particular body, and these internal force in addition to the external force tend to keep the body in equilibrium, and within the elastic limits the internal forces are numerically equal to the external forces. Whenever a body is in equilibrium, then the internal forces will always be equal to the external forces. Next is external forces. So this is the state of stress and strain that is acting on a body because of the external influences or external loads or external forces. So the external forces acting on a body can be divided into three types, that is surface force or the traction force. Normally we also call it as surface tension in case of liquids. Point loads or loads acting at a particular point, and the weight of the body, the load due to the weight of the body or body force. Okay, so we will see each of this elaborately in the next slide. With the elaboration we shall see in the next slide. The significance of each of these forces we shall see in the next slide. So the body force, the symbol for which is F, it is distributed force acting on every element or volume of the body. It will be acting uniformly throughout all the elements of the body, and unit is a force per unit volume or Newton per millimeter cube. So best examples for body force is self weight due to gravity, electromagnetic forces, centrifugal forces, inertial forces, etc. So body force vector can be given as f of x, f of y and f of z, each acting in x axis, y axis and z axis. So these are nothing but the body force components in x, y and z directions respectively. The work potential of a particular body is the work done by an external force. Therefore work potential due to body force is given by f of ut or u transpose into f of dv, where u transpose is equal to uvw, where uvw are nothing but the displacement components of x axis, y axis and z axis, or displacement components of x, y and z directions. So u, v, w are nothing but the displacement components acting in x axis, y axis and z axis. So next is the traction force. Next is the traction force. It is the distributed force acting on the surface of the body. So unit is force per unit area or Newton per millimeter square. So but for one dimensional problems, force is for unit length. In case of 1D problems, it is force per unit length. In case of 2D problems, it will be Newton per millimeter square. It will be on the surface area or unit area. For 1D problems, it will be force per unit length. So best examples for this is frictionless resistance, viscous drag, surface shear, etc. So the force vector T due to traction is given by T is equal to Tx, Ty, Tz. So where in Tx, Ty and Tz are the traction components in x direction, y direction and z directions respectively. So the work potential due to the traction or surface force is given by T is equal to integrating ut into T ds, where ut is nothing but uvw, and uvw are the displacement components in x axis, y axis and z axis respectively. Next is the next type of load is the point load. So this is the force acting at a particular point where it causes displacement. So point load will always be acting at a one particular point in the body. It will be acting at one single point in the entire structure of the body. So point load or concentrated load is given by P of x, P of y and P of z, wherein the work potential due to the concentrated load will be given by summation of ui power t into pi, where the work potential due to all the forces is given by integrating ut f of dv plus ut t into ds plus ut into pi. So the work potential is negative since the energy is obtained from the external sources. The work potential in the equation 3.158 is represented as negative because it is obtained from the external sources. So just like I said, the stiffness matrix is a password that can be used to solve the structural problems. So the term is used regardless of the application. The matrix relation between temperature and heat flux is also called as a stiffness matrix. So there are two types of stiffness matrix in finite element analysis. That is the elemental stiffness matrix. So this elemental stiffness matrix pertains to an individual element or an individual structure or an individual system or a continuum, whereas the global stiffness matrix will correspond to the entire structure or entire system or entire continuum, and it is an assemblage or summation of all the elemental stiffness matrices. So just like the name suggests, finite element method, it is basically breaking up a big component into smaller parts and then solving the finding the solution for the each element. So when we are breaking up the big structure into smaller elements, we are also calculating the stiffness matrix for each element. So this stiffness matrix is called as the elemental stiffness matrix. Now when we assemble this individual stiffness matrices, we get the global stiffness matrix. So the global stiffness matrix will pertain to the entire structure or the entire element, entire group of elements. So the following methods can be used to derive the stiffness matrix. That is, direct method is one of the method, variational method, weighted residual method are the some of the methods that can be used to derive the stiffness matrices. So what happens in the direct method? In this method, in the direct method, the elemental properties are obtained by direct interpretation of a physical structure by using the basic principles of mechanics of materials. So due to the various limitations involved in the physical interpretation, the use of this method is limited to very simple type of elements. Next is the variational method. In this method, elemental properties are obtained by applying the variational principles of calculus of variation. So it uses the principle of minimum potential energy. The third is weighted residual method. So in this method, the elemental properties are obtained directly from governing differential equations and by using weighted residual integral. So the different weighted residual procedures such as Galerkin method, least squares method can be used to derive the elemental equations. So these are some of the methods used to derive the elemental stiffness matrix. So let me once again tell you that elemental stiffness matrix comes in the stiffness matrix pertains to the structural problems, and the individual elemental stiffness matrix can be combined to get a global stiffness matrix for the entire structure or the entire problem. So let us see the example of direct method. So figure 4.3 shows the uniform prismatic bar of length L and Young's modulus E, cross-sectional area A, and it is fixed at one end, or in simple words it's a cantilever structure, and it is subjected to an axial load of F at the other end. So this prismatic elastic bar can be modeled in the finite element model using one-dimensional bar element. So this bar element will have node 1 and node 2, or in simple words this bar element will have two nodes, which is represented in the figure 4.4 on the right side of your screen. So let u1 be the nodal displacement at node 1, u2 be the nodal displacement at node 2, let f1 be the nodal force acting at node 1 and f2 be the nodal force acting at node 2. Then the equation for equilibrium of this bar element can be expressed as k into u is equal to f, wherein k is the stiffness matrix, u is nothing but the displacement matrix, and f is the force matrix. So in simple words, stiffness into displacement is equal to the load acting. So we can further write this in matrix form as k11 k12 k21 k22 into u1 u2 is equal to f1 f2. So u1 and u2 are nothing but the nodal displacements at node 1 and 2, f1 f2 are the nodal forces at node 1 and 2. k11 k12 k21 and k22 are known as the stiffness coefficients, and the value of stiffness coefficients can be determined by using the basic definition of stiffness influence coefficients. So the stiffness influence coefficients is defined as the force needed at a node 1 or the first node to produce a unit displacement at node 2 or the second node, while all other nodes are restrained. So in k11 simply it is the force needed at node 1 to produce a unit displacement at node 1, whereas other nodes are restrained. Similarly k12 means the force needed to at node 1 to produce a unit displacement at node 2. So this is the literal meaning of the node numbers k11, k12, k21 and k22. So the figure 2.7, the figure shows that the force equal to K11, that is force per unit deflection, is induced due to the unit deflection applied at node 1 because of the as the node 2 is restrained. Let's move to the next slide. So if force F1 is induced at node 1, then deflection U11 at node 1 is given by U11 is equal to FL by AE, or F1 divided by U11 is equal to AE divided by L, or in simple words, K11 is nothing but AE divided by L, where AE is because of the cross-sectional area of the element, EE is the elasticity of the element, L is the length of the element. Similarly, displacement at node 2 is given by U21, that is equal to minus F1 LE divided by AE E suffix E, which is equal to F1 divided by U21 is equal to AE divided by L. Hence K21 is equal to minus AE divided by L, Similarly, K22 and K12 also we can obtain in the same fashion, and it will be equal to K22 will be equal to AE divided by L, and K12 will be equal to minus AE divided by L. Now, applying unit displacement at node 2 and node 1 is restrained. This is obtained by applying unit displacement at node 2 when node 1 is restrained. So, the stiffness matrix can be written as K11, K12, K21, K22 is equal to we shall see in the next slide how exactly the stiffness matrix is represented. Let me change over to the next slide. So here you can see K11, K12, K21, K22, which is equal to AE divided by L minus AE divided by L. Similarly, K21 is nothing but minus AE divided by L and AE divided by L. Now, if I consider the terms that are constant and take it outside, I can write it as A suffix E, E suffix E divided by L suffix E, where A is nothing but the area, E is nothing but the elasticity of the element, L is nothing but the length of the element, and inside the matrix I can write it as 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. So this is the stiffness matrix for the bar element. Which we have obtained based on the direct method. Next, we shall see the principle of minimum potential energy method to derive the stiffness matrix. So let me once again tell you, the stiffness matrix remains the same. K is equal to AE divided by L into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. We will try a different method to derive this stiffness matrix. So using the principle of minimum potential energy. So the figure in the next slide shows a uniform prismatic bar of length L with Young's modulus E and cross-sectional area A, that is fixed at one end, and it is subjected to axial load F. Consider the same figure that is used in direct method. This figure is there in slide number 11 in the same video. Check the slide number 11. The same figure is used for deriving the stiffness matrix for the element using potential energy. So refer the same figure which is given in slide number 11. So again, let us consider bar of length L, Young's modulus E, cross-sectional area A. It is fixed at one end, and at the other end load F is acting. So the prismatic elastic bar can be modeled in finite element model using 1D bar element having two nodes at 1 and 2 respectively. So So let u1 be the nodal displacement at node 1 and u2 be the nodal displacement at node 2. If F1 and F2 are nodal forces at respective nodes, then the potential energy function of the bar element is given by SE plus WP, where SE of the bar element is equal to half into integral from 0 to L AE du by dx whole square into dx, and WP is equal to minus F1 u1 minus F2 u2. So thus, substituting this in the upper equation 4.2, we shall see what we will get in the next slide. So adding up, we will get potential energy is equal to AE by 2 integrating from 0 to L del U by del X whole square del X minus F1 U1 plus F2 U2. So the polynomial displacement function U is equal to A0 plus A1x, so which should satisfy the boundary condition, that is at x equal to 0 U is equal to U1, and when x is equal to L U will be equal to U2. So when U1 will be equal to A0 plus A1 into 0, so U1 is equal to A0. Similarly, A1 will be equal to U2 minus U1 by L. When I am substituting the values of x is equal to 0, x is equal to L, U is equal to U1 and U is equal to U2, I get the values for the variables A0 and A1. So A0 is nothing but U1, A1 is equal to U2 minus U1 by L. Substituting this in the equation 4.22, I get U is equal to U1 plus U2 minus U1 by L into x, or del U by del X is equal to U2 minus U1 by L. Because U1 is constant, it becomes 0, and differential with respect to x, only the constant term stays back. Now substituting the value of del U by del X in equation 4.2, we get potential energy is equal to AE by 2 integrating from 0 to 1 U2 minus U1 by L whole square del X minus F1 U1 minus F2 U2. Simplifying the term and taking the constant terms outside, that is AE by 2 U2 minus U1 by L whole square, and integrating from 0 to 1 del X minus F1 U1 minus F2 U2. Integrating and substituting the values of 0 and L, we get potential energy is equal to AE by 2 U2 minus U1 whole square by L into L minus F1 U1 minus F2 U2, or potential energy is equal to AE divided by 2L into U1 square plus U2 square minus 2 U1 U2 minus F1 U1 minus F2 U2. So further substituting the values and minimizing the potential equation functional and condition for the minimization, we get differential of the potential energy with respect to U1 is equal to 0, and differential of the potential energy with respect to U2 is equal to 0. So AE divided by 2L into 2U2 minus 2U2 minus F1 is equal to 0, or in simple words, F1 is equal to AE by 2L into U1 minus U2. Similarly, differentiating the potential energy with respect to U2, so del PE divided by del U2 is equal to AE by 2L into 2U2 minus 2U1 minus F2, or in simple words, F2 is equal to AE by L into minus U1 plus U2. Now representing this in the matrix form, we get AE by L has common into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, U1 U2 is equal to F1 F2, or here AE divided by L into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 can be represented as the stiffness matrix K. So K is equal to AE divided by L into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, where K is the stiffness matrix for the bar element. So here you can see that using two different methods, that is by the concept of potential energy and the concept of direct method, we have proven that the stiffness matrix for a bar element is equal to AE by L into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 into, where A is nothing but the cross sectional area of the element, E is nothing but the modulus of elasticity, L is nothing but the length of the element. So if there are multiple elements, then the stiffness matrix for each element has to be derived and it has to be added up. So if there are 3 elements, then 3 elemental stiffness matrix has to be derived and then we have to add up the stiffness matrix. So how exactly it is done, we can see with an example when we are solving a problem for the so in the next forthcoming videos we shall be solving the problems for the stiffness matrix. So whenever there are multiple stiffness matrices are there, whenever there are multiple elements, individual stiffness matrix has to be derived and then it has to be added in order to get the global stiffness matrix. So how exactly it is done, we can understand with the help of a example when we are solving the problems. With this we have completed the derivation part for the module 2. Thank you.